Three things happened in the last few weeks that barely caused a ripple in the mainstream political conversation. In South Carolina, a senator died, Lindsey Graham. 3 days later, his sister was sworn into his seat. She has never held elected office in her life. She works as an optician. She was selected because Donald Trump posted on social media that it would be a fabulous tribute to her brother. The governor agreed. The Senate Majority Leader said it made a lot of sense. Nobody voted. Nobody was asked. In Britain, a sitting MP voluntarily resigned from a safe Labour seat to create a vacancy. The Greater Manchester mayor ran in the resulting by-election. He won with a constituency of 77,000 voters in a country of 67 million. He then stood in a Labour leadership contest, won it, and walked into 10 Downing Street as Prime Minister. Britain has a new head of state. No general election was held. No national mandate was sought. The Wall Street Journal described it as a political situation unprecedented in modern British history. And in Washington, more than half of America's 195 ambassador posts are currently vacant. 107 out of 195 ambassador positions are vacant as of late June 2026, including key posts in Ukraine, Russia, and the United Arab Emirates. Of the 101 ambassador nominations Trump has made in his second term, only 9 were career diplomats. The State Department has lost more than 3,000 employees, over 20% of its workforce, since January 2025. The posts that have been filled have gone to political allies, donors, and loyalists. These 3 stories are, in their own way, a performance of democratic process. The form is intact, the substance has been quietly removed. Let us look at each one more closely. Darlene Graham Norden is Lindsey Graham's younger sister. He legally adopted her after both of their parents died when she was a teenager. She is described by everyone who knows her as a warm and devoted person. None of that is in question. What is in question is this: she has never held elected office. She has worked as an optician and at various state agencies, including the South Carolina Commission for the Blind. She is now a United States Senator. She will vote on legislation, on judicial appointments, on military authorizations, on treaties. The people of South Carolina did not choose her. The President of the United States recommended her because, in his own words, it would be a fabulous tribute. The governor called her Lindsey's darling little sister and said it was his honor to ask her to finish his work. Senate Majority Leader said it made a lot of sense. By Tuesday, she was sworn in. The whole process took 3 days. In Britain, the mechanics were different, but the outcome was structurally similar. It is the first time a by-election has been triggered specifically to provide a seat for a figure not currently in Parliament since the 1965 Leighton by-election. A sitting MP resigned his safe seat so that Andy Burnham, who had not been in Parliament, could run for it, win it, and then use it as the platform to challenge for the Labour leadership. He won that too. Britain's parliamentary system allows governing parties to change leaders mid-term, with the winner becoming the Prime Minister without the need for a national election. This is constitutionally permitted. It is also constitutionally permitted to ask whether a Prime Minister who has won one constituency by-election and one internal party vote has a meaningful democratic mandate to govern 67 million people. It is also constitutionally permitted to ask whether a Prime Minister who has won one constituency by-election and one internal party vote has a meaningful democratic mandate to govern 67 million people. Now look at what is happening to American diplomacy. Bill Burns, who served as ambassador to Russia and later led the CIA, said things are quite bad and that the damage Trump is causing is even greater than the fallout of the McCarthy era in the 1950s. That is not a progressive commentator. That is a veteran of 4 decades of American foreign policy describing what he is watching in the starkest terms he has available. Out of 101 ambassador nominations during his second term, only 9 were career diplomats, breaking away from a practice followed for the past 60 years. Trump has mostly chosen political appointees instead of experienced career diplomats. The posts that are filled with donors, allies, and people with financial relationships to the administration. The posts that are not filled, Ukraine, Russia, the UAE, are left empty. Meanwhile, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff negotiate the most consequential foreign policy arrangements of the century, the Iran ceasefire, the Gulf relationships, the Venezuela operation, from outside of the formal diplomatic structure entirely, with no Senate confirmation, no institutional accountability, and private equity funds simultaneously receiving billions from the same sovereign wealth pools their diplomatic activity directly affects. We documented that in episode 1 of this series. The figures have only grown since. A former US ambassador told the Financial Times, "We were outplayed. The Iranians are experienced negotiators and they brought teams of experts who knew these issues inside and out. The US did not, and so unilaterally put our side at a disadvantage. The hollowing of the State Department is not an administrative incompetence. It is the replacement of the institutional diplomatic capacity which answers to processes, to Congress, to established norms, with personal networks that answer to no one except the people who built them. That is not a weaker form of the same system. It is a different system wearing the same clothes." This channel takes its name from an agreement signed in 1916 that divided the Muslim world on paper without asking the people who lived there. The division was presented as administrative necessity. It was ratified through institutional processes. It looked from a distance like diplomacy. What we have documented across 11 episodes is that the gap between the appearance of a process and its actual function is not a modern invention. It is the consistent operating system of power. The Sykes-Picot line looked like a map. The Iran resistance axis looked like solidarity. The Section 219 provision looked like defense cooperation. Each was labeled for something else. The 3 stories in this episode follow the same pattern. A Senate appointment that looks like a constitutional continuity, a prime ministerial transition that looks like parliamentary democracy, a diplomatic overhaul that looks like reform. What they share is the progressive removal of the mechanisms through which ordinary people, voters, citizens, the governed, could meaningfully constrain the decisions made in their name. Maria Edelman, whose 1964 book we discussed in episode 4 of the main channel essay, argued that the political systems sustain themselves not by delivering outcomes, but by producing the appearance of legitimate process. The appearance is what prevents the governed from questioning the arrangement. When the appearance becomes too thin, when a senator's sister is sworn in 3 days after his death because the president made a social media post, the question that gets asked is not just whether this specific decision was the right or wrong one. The question is what the process was ever actually for. The world is complex. The noise is deliberate. The spectrum cuts through it.